Tim Bradley has announced his retirement from the sport of boxing. He finishes his ring career with a record of 33 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. 13 wins by KO. Tim Bradley, to me, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way at all, but he is the quintessential overachiever. Because when you look at it, Bradley was a short guy for his weight. He was shorter than most of his opponents. He wasn't a big puncher. He wasn't particularly fast. I mean, he wasn't slow, but, he wasn't particularly fast. Certainly not in terms of hand speed. He didn't have the best technique. He didn't even have an iron jaw or anything like it. He was, I don't want to say he was chinny at all, but he certainly got put down and hurt more than his fair share of times during his pro career. So he wasn't the most physically talented guy. But in terms of what he achieved, wow. On paper, this guy's got wins over Pacquiao, Marquez, Devon Alexander, Lamont Peterson. And, some of the names that I'm going to be talking about in this video, they might not be jaw-dropping names now, but at the time when Tim Bradley beat some of these guys, they were unbeaten, or they were some of the very top guys in the division. People like Peterson and Devon Alexander, for example. But he first came onto my radar, Tim Bradley. I mean, Miguel Vasquez, another good fighter that Tim Bradley beat. But he first came onto my radar, Tim Bradley, when he beat Junior Witter in the UK. I believe that was his first world title, when he won his title at 140 pounds against Junior Witter. And I remember being impressed by his smartness, because Junior Witter is a very tricky and awkward fighter to fight. And I remember watching that fight and being very impressed with how clever Tim Bradley was. And he managed to drop Junior Witter in that fight. He won the fight by split decision. He then went on to fight people like Kendall Holt. I believe that was actually a unification fight at the time with Kendall Holt. And he got dropped badly. I'm sure it was in the first round against Holt. He got dropped badly. He hit the deck like he'd been shot. But he got up off the canvas and, brushed his shoulders off and just went right back to work after being seriously dropped and hurt by Kendall Holt, who was a tremendous puncher at the time. And I remember thinking, wow, this guy's got some heart on him, man. Getting dropped like that is normally curtains for most people. I mean, they at least get off the canvas and then go into survival mode for a little bit. But no, Bradley got off the canvas and he was straight back in Kendall Holt's chest. Bradley was a versatile fighter. He could fight on the inside when he had to and rough you up. He could fight on the back foot. He could play chess like he did with Junior Witter. He could do a bit of everything. He was a jack of all trades and a master of none. That's what Tim Bradley was. In my view, anyway. Some people might say he was a master on the inside, but no, I think he was a jack of all trades and a master of none. And a true overachiever. A guy who achieved far more than somebody of his type of physical ability normally would. So yeah, the Kendall Holt fight is definitely a memory for me. He then took the unbeaten record of Lamont Peterson. Great win for Tim Bradley. He dropped Peterson too, outboxed him, won a unanimous decision. Think about it. He outboxed Peterson. Peterson's way taller than Bradley. Peterson can box. Peterson's good on the inside and on the outside. And we're talking about this at 140 pounds here, people. We ain't talking about, Peterson moving up to 147. We're not talking about Peterson being up against a big puncher, because Peterson's chin was always a little questionable. We're not talking about Peterson fighting a Matisse here. We're talking about Peterson fighting Tim Bradley, a guy who's not known for power, a guy who's shorter than he is. And Bradley was able to comprehensively outbox him, drop him, beat him comfortably on the cards. Like, that was a great performance by Tim Bradley. Probably one of his best performances. I remember that fight. Then he fought Luis Abregu, who didn't turn out to be one of the best fighters around, but at the time he was unbeaten. He was a puncher. He was like, God knows how many and oh. And he beat Abregu on points. He then fought Devon Alexander, another unbeaten. This guy was fighting unbeaten fighters on the bounce. Guys who were highly ranked, world rated, world level fighters. And this was another unification, actually, the Devon Alexander fight. He went in there, roughed up Alexander, beat him too, took his unbeaten record too. That fight was actually stopped. Devon Alexander was, what was he, cut in the fight and claimed headbutt and this, that, and the other. You know, it was stopped after, I think, 9 or 10 rounds, and Bradley won on the scorecards, you know, for however they decided to choose the outcome of that fight. Anyway, after that, he fought Pacquiao for the first time. Controversial fight, no question. I felt like he lost the first fight with Pacquiao by a pretty decent margin, but he got it on paper, the win over Pacquiao, so it at least looks good on his resume. He then had that crazy fight after that with Ruslan Provodnikov. And one of the things about Bradley, one of the hallmarks of his career and his fighting style, is that he would fight with his heart on his sleeve a lot of the time. You won't find a braver fighter than Tim Bradley. Anywhere in the history of boxing, this guy was brave. Often too brave for his own good. And the way he fought Provodnikov was suicide. It really was. Because he was upset with the backlash that he got from the Manny Pacquiao fight. And it's not his fault. I always defend fighters who have gotten bad decisions in their favor. They're not the ones who have given themselves the decision. Blame the judges. Get mad with the judges. Don't get mad with the fighter. But anyway, he received death threats and all types of abuse after he had that decision over Pacquiao. And he went into the Provodnikov fight angry and mad. People were criticizing all kinds of things about him, saying he can't punch, he's a paper champion, this, that, and the other. So he went up against Provodnikov and had a point to prove. He was trying to knock Provodnikov out in the early stages of the fight. Bad move. Bad move, because Provodnikov at that time was a serious puncher, and he nearly knocked Tim Bradley out on several occasions in that fight. To be fair, Bradley almost stopped Provodnikov too. You can hear Freddie Roach, Provodnikov's trainer, in the corner in that fight, talking about pulling Provodnikov out. Just after the midway stage, I think it was, because he was getting hit a lot by Bradley and he wasn't punching back too much. When Bradley boxed in that fight, used his legs, he was quite dominant. But then he seemed compelled to trade with Provodnikov at certain points, and that's when he ended up getting himself hurt and nearly stopped. He was nearly stopped in the 12th by Provodnikov. So yeah, that was definitely one of his most memorable fights, the Ruslan Provodnikov fight. He then went on to get his best win, I would say, of his career against Juan Manuel Marquez when many doubted him. I think I picked Tim Bradley to win that fight. Pretty sure I did. I'm sure the post-fight video should be up on this channel. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I picked him to win the fight. I did pick him to win. I remember, yeah, I picked Tim Bradley to win the Marquez fight. And there were a lot of people who were telling me, Hatman, you're crazy. Tim Bradley can't box. There's no way he's going to outbox Marquez, so on and so forth. But I was adamant and I stuck to my guns. Nah, Bradley's going to win that fight. I just felt like his foot movement, his foot speed would be too much for Marquez. And it was in the end. So that was a great win for Tim Bradley. He fought Pacquiao again, lost this time, a UD. Came back, had a couple of fights, beat Jesse Vargas. Another win. Another unbeaten guy that Tim Bradley beat. Jesse Vargas. This guy was an overachiever, man. Seriously. Stopped Brandon Rios after that as well. Who would have thought he would have stopped Brandon Rios? Like, Rios is an iron-jawed guy. Tim Bradley, not a puncher. He managed to stop Brandon Rios. I believe that was... I think that was his first fight with Teddy Atlas as his trainer. Or was it the Vargas fight? No. Atlas was commentating on the Vargas fight. But his first fight was with Teddy Atlas was the Brennan Rios fight. That was his first fight with Atlas. And then finally, he fought his third fight with Pacquiao, and he was beat in the most decisive fashion against Pacquiao. And that was last year, and that ended up being his final fight. So all in all, Tim Bradley, a great career, an overachiever, a guy who fought at the very, very highest level and did a hell of a lot, you know? A two-weight world champion, a guy who beat a lot of unbeaten fighters, took their O's, a guy who has a legitimate win over an all-time great in Juan Manuel Marquez, and a not-so-legitimate win over Manny Pacquiao, a guy who went to other people's backyards like he did against Junior Witter. You know, you got to take your hat off to Tim Bradley, man. Great, great fighter. Definitely a Hall of Famer as far as I'm concerned. I'm not saying he's up there with the elite Hall of Famers, but he's a Hall of Famer, in my view. Great fighter, overachiever, and a real credit to the sport of boxing. You know, real credit to the sport of boxing. The only time that Bradley was accused of ducking was actually Amir Khan. And he did avoid Amir Khan at 140 pounds. But do I believe he was afraid of Khan? No. At the time when he didn't fight Khan, it was when he was dealing with some type of promotional situation. Bradley was trying to leave his current promoter and sign with Bob Arum at the time. And that's when the Khan fight came up and Bradley ducked it. You know, but I don't believe he ducked it because he was scared of Khan. I mean, look at the guys that he fought. He fought Pacquiao, Marquez, and all these other guys. You're not going to fight guys like that and be afraid of Amir Khan. So, you know, that was what that was. I think it was a business decision at the time, just my opinion. So, yeah, Bradley can retire. He's always been a family man. Never been a guy out there boozing and abusing his body. He did blow up between fights a couple times where he looked overweight. I guess his wife's home cooking was a little too good. But for the most part, the guy was a consummate pro, trained extremely hard, had an incredible physique for a fighter. You would imagine this guy was a puncher with the kind of muscles he has on him. But no, he was never really a big puncher. But yeah, consummate pro, great career. He'll be missed, you know? An old school fighter, a real blue collar guy. And he deserved, he's one of those kind of guys where you can say he really earned every penny he made in the boxing ring. Every penny. So, yeah. Drop your comments in the comment section below, people. How will you remember Tim Bradley? Do you agree with my assessment of his career, that he was an overachiever? Are there any guys that he didn't fight that you wish he did fight? Maybe you would have liked to see the Khan fight. Maybe you would have liked to seen him against Mayweather. Let me know what you feel in the comment section, people. And before I go, don't forget to click the notification bell below this video. It should be next to the subscription button, the subscribe button, or somewhere else on the screen there. If you're watching on a smartphone, just have a look. Click the notification bell to receive alerts for all my future uploads. All right? It's happening. I'm out.